August 29th, Michigan, just prior to 10 a.m. I'm sitting here now speaking. I took a few videos of the sky, of the spraying, the geoengineering, the stratospheric aerosol injection, the particulates being put purposefully into the atmosphere. I wanted to talk about why it looks the way it looks when it's sprayed and the way it spreads. What can be seen there? Those are the wave propagations of the energy from those towers, depending on what frequency that energy is coming out at, whether it's low frequency or high frequency. What can be seen in those wave patterns in the sky, that is the vibration of that frequency, of that energy being pushed out by those towers to interact with these particulates. The metals, the chemicals, the biologicals, the nanos, all of the different particulates and components that are being sprayed above all over the place on a daily and nightly basis. If you have a grasp on what energy is, the dielectric and the magnetic intertwined, then you'll get the basis of energy and how it then builds into matter and how it all interacts with matter. In this case, the energy, the frequency, the towers they're attuned to, high or low frequencies, and the vibration of that energy that's interacting with the matter particulate. That same energy is energy, period. It is dielectric and magnetic. We are also that energy at our core. We are electromagnetic beings. We are not just, that gets into the spirit itself. The spirit is knowing what energy is and knowing that the infinity of energy and how it works intertwined. You get later from that, you can see that intertwined serpent that's used all over the place. Really, it can be broken down to a separation of the dielectric and the magnetic, but then just labeled light and dark, night and day, this and that, left and right, blue and red, whatever. It's the unification of all that dualistic thinking and this and that, to unify all of that into the basic building blocks of knowledge, of energy, how it works, how it all interacts, how it then manifests into matter, and how matter is still affected by the energies we can't see, such as you can see the example in the clouds. Those waves that can be seen in the clouds are the proof of the vibrations, of the power of the energy being put out by these towers, these frequencies, to control, move around particulates, make them interact, create weather, as it's been going on for decades. Also, these frequencies also very much interact with us, as we are also these electromagnetic beings. These frequencies and the vibrations from those frequencies can cause physical manifestations of stress and distress in the body, and dis-ease, which creates disease, and it also affects the cognitive function of the brain, because the firing of those neurons is the dielectric and magnetic energy of nature, of our nature. The heart also resonates powerfully with its own field, the field of our being itself. So really what you see in those waves, that is magnetism. That is force and motion. That is the energy being pushed out that's affecting all kinds of stuff in all kinds of negative ways. It just takes the research on one's own to get the knowledge of what's going on, to then understand what's going on, to then gain the wisdom from that within oneself, because wisdom can't be given to anyone. Wisdom has to manifest from within. But that can only happen with the correct knowledge going in the first place. Cannot believe the things that are being also propagated throughout the networks, the news, that mind-controlling device of the television, and the way it's been used as a weapon against the psyche and the consciousness of the populace since its inception. That's what it was for. The radio came before it and did the same. The process of learning how to learn is important. For me, growing up here, I was only taught what to learn, not how to learn. Then once I learned how to learn on my own and learned that almost everything I was taught were lies, to then get down to the who, what, why of not just me, but everything else and how it worked. But especially of me and the psychology of me and the interaction of how I worked and how I was affected and how I was so disconnected. And then tracing that back through best as I could, generations, and seeing it's been going on 4 generations. The toxicity and the indoctrination is only getting more chaotic and worse, more broken, more disconnected. Folk have to disconnect from it, have to disconnect from the system itself, walk away, turn their back on even what they thought they were, and figure out that they are more than what they were taught they were. And figure it out quick, because until these costumes of the ego are shed out there in every single system and things are analyzed to see, do they actually cause harm or not, and know it, not just take the word of some ridiculous character, take their word for it based off of some nonsensical study they present, or just plain because they say so and they have a certain title or whatever attached to them. Don't fall for it, because for generations everyone's been falling for it. We could have never got here to this point if that hadn't happened, if we hadn't been all cut off so bad from our heart, from our core, our own morality, because morality was trained and programmed out of this society, best I can tell now, because it was absolutely trained and burned out of me from birth. That's what the chemicals were for that are injected. And I could go on and on and on and on, but I will try to keep it at just this, so I guess I'll leave it here for now. But find out what's being sprayed, and then you can quickly figure out why. And then when you see all the trees are dying and they're coming up from the roots, trees are dying, floodings on purpose in multiple places, and not just because weather's being created, because in populated areas that they don't want folk in later down the road, which we're here, Agenda 21, Agenda 2030, the populace being herded into the mega city region zones where they want folk, under the control of the 5G weapon system. Make no mistake, those millimeter waves, those are ultra high frequency waves that'll have absolutely devastating physical and cognitive effects on everyone, and that's known. That's why it's being put in so rapidly. Folk don't stop putting it in, realize that they're just wearing whatever costume they're wearing, installer costume, not knowing, hey, the things they're putting up are actual weapon systems. Well, maybe they should also do the research to figure it out, and maybe they will start de-installing these damn things. And then we can start to work backwards on the 4G, the 3G, all these other harmful frequencies that have been harmful all along, because all of this is on the electromagnetic spectrum, all these frequencies. So those waves and all that stuff, and you see, even when you look at the sun, what you're seeing is a frequency of sound in the form or manifestation of light, or how you can perceive with your eyes, but it's still a frequency of sound, and it has its own vibration. That's why it's much different to take in the light from the sun, the sound from the sun through the eyes that can be seen, and then that vibration can travel throughout the body, throughout the mind and consciousness. The body and the psyche and the physiology needs that natural light, because the light from the screens and these LEDs and this blue light is designed to over time destroy the rods and cones of the eyes, so they cannot take natural light, which is why so many folk cannot look out at nature without wearing sunglasses or protecting their eyes, because the nature's light hurts their eyes because the eyes have become so weak over time. I only say that because it happened to me, and I talked in depth about it and my whole freak out over my eyesight and then the healing process there. And I did what might sound to be some crazy stuff to my eyes in other videos, but it was very necessary for a lot of reasons. Because my eyes were that weak, and my perception was that weak, and my psyche was that narrow and fractured, where I didn't even know what I was looking at. It turned out my whole life, as I looked out at reality, I could not see what I was seeing. I couldn't see the big picture of it. I didn't get the why of it, any of it. I just blindly reacted with the labels I attached to myself and played out a fake life, like I've said before. Just trying to, again, just try to help get the point across that if folk could just go deeper on their own and quickly, deeper, it's really all of our responsibility, all of us, each of us. It can't take waiting for anyone to come along to do it, because it's not going to happen. That's what's counted on. It's counted on that folk won't wake up, so to speak, or awaken, or whatever, in mass, in morality, and stand up and actively speak from a place of knowing themselves and knowing morality and knowing the mistakes of their own past, and then already working to have corrected and changed their behaviors, of knowing better, of actually gaining their own understanding from the knowledge they have, which then can be distilled into wisdom of new patterns of thought and behavior with full control over the logic and creativity and reason of one's own senses and one's own common senses regained, tied to that infinitely important ability of empathy in the heart, of care, of being able to relate and interrelate. What harm is, what is doing harm, and then to stop that harm, because the food, the drink, the what's called medicine, and the allopathic society out there that's being pushed on everyone, all of these things, they're poisons. They're poisons that have been pushed on us on purpose to cut off our cognitive function and to cut off the empathy, the care of our heart, so we would never get to know ourselves, to know that we were more than what we were taught we were. So I haven't really talked to the camera for a while. But after I got done talking, recording my voice earlier, talking about the sky, that's why I've been using a little voice recorder on a lot of these videos lately. But I was trying to think of something to call it, and then what came to mind was, oh snap, do you see this? Or, you know what this is? Something like that. But something just to maybe catch attention from someone is all. But I was thinking about the word itself, snap. And I figured instead of typing any of this stuff into the description, I'd just say something to the camera. But snap. What came to mind in my mind was the word nap in there. And then the thought of, you ever try to take a nap and a snake wakes you up from that nap? The S being the snake right in front of the word nap. So, just a little fun thought process I had just momentarily about a title. I just wanted to talk about it, explain it. Of course, it takes more words to get it out and express it than it does for it to just come to mind. So hopefully it doesn't sound too crazy, but maybe you get what I'm talking about, because really it is. I'm trying to get folk to snap out of it, because I see how it's worked. I see how it's worked on all of us. See how it has worked and is still working on my own parents. My own mother just recently, she came to visit me. And she told me she was talked into after she refused vaccines at a doctor's appointment. Got 2 more vaccines, even though she said she didn't want them a couple times. She eventually relented and gave in and let them inject her with that poison, which I let her know very specifically, once again, that those are poisons and what they do to the body, to the cognitive function, create cognitive dysfunction, along with all of the other associated health effects. Only because I healed from so much vaccine damage of my own. And that's just another example of things that folk have to gain their own knowledge on, to look themselves into what these things actually are, and then deeply consider what they actually do. The body and the brain has to be clear of these toxins for one to become clear inside, and for things to truly make sense. And then to be able to express and convey these things to others. So yeah, just please realize I'm only trying to help. I'm not trying to come off as some kind of know-it-all or just whatever. But what I'm saying is, were hard-earned lessons for me and for my whole family. Hard-earned lessons that never had to occur. So that thought about, well, maybe folk just have to go down these real dark ass paths and all this. They have to suffer all of this trauma to be able to come through the other side. Nope, because I came to realize that once one's clear inside, one can consider deeply and empathetically all the traumatic stuff life could have to offer, and imagine it happening to oneself, inside oneself. And that can be the pit of hell that one needs to go through on one's own to then come to light, a life in spirit inside, and to know morality and to get it, and to cognitively function in a way to avoid all those harmful behaviors. It doesn't take actually physically suffering all that trauma and harm. We have the cognitive ability, or should, to be able to consider all those things deeply enough to know what's happening, going on, to know that things shouldn't be happening, and then to put a stop to it. So anyway, now I guess I'll leave it there. So please, again, feel free to share. Feel free to look deeper. One place I would feel comfortable in pointing someone toward it is, it's a woman named Carol. She lives in North Carolina. Channel is called Never Lose Truth. I think there's another called Never Lose Truth Kafka, or Never Lose Truth 2. Anyway, look for Never Lose Truth or Never Lose Truth 2. She's put together a lot of videos on a lot of research on what's happening in the sky, in a good spot where it's all put together. And also the way she conveys information about what's going on, she's pointing out directly also as well the broken psychology of society itself, because the way we were all taught here. So anyway, yeah, thanks for listening.